are the lion-hearted righteous? Who are the righteous? Who are the lion-hearted righteous ones? Let me take the one answer from Psalm 32, how he became righteous before God and how it made him bold as a lion. In Psalm 32:1-2 David says, "How blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. How blessed is the man against whom the Lord does not impute iniquity." Then at the end of the psalm David tells us what sort of person this is whose sins are forgiven and whose transgressions are not counted. Verses 10-11 He who trusts in the Lord, loving kindness shall surround him. Be glad in the Lord and rejoice you righteous ones and shout for joy all you upright in heart. The righteous ones are the ones who trust in the Lord, the ones who have faith and bank their hope on the mercy and power and wisdom of God. These are the ones against whom the Lord does not impute iniquity and whose sins are forgiven. They are righteous not with a righteousness of their own, but with the imputed righteousness of God. These are the ones who are free from fear. Their consciences are sprinkled clean from an evil conscience, Hebrews 10:22. Their hearts no longer condemn them, 1 John 3:21. They are right with God, because of His grace, not because of their merit. And their boldness with God and with men shows the worth and the value of the gospel, Hebrews 4:2-6, of God's grace. The wicked flee when no one is pursuing because their conscience the echo of God condemns them, but the righteous are bold as a lion, because their conscience is made clean by the righteousness of God imputed to them through faith in Jesus Christ, and there is no condemnation. May the gospel of God's free righteousness, 2 Corinthians 5:21, Romans 1:17, Philippians 3:19, take us captive and radically free us from fear, so that we can be as bold as a lion for the sake of the gospel. The earliest example of this is Adam in the Garden of Eden. He sins against the Lord. He acts wickedly, believing the serpent instead of God his Father. Then Genesis 3:8 says that Adam and Eve heard the sound of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Not stalking, just walking. He is not pursuing. He is there, as he often was for the good of his people. But things were not the same now. Adam and Eve now have a bad conscience. And a bad conscience makes breezes into burglars and shadows into ghosts and police into adversaries and parents into police and God into an enemy even when they are not. Verse 8 goes on, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. And then the Lord called to the man and said, Where are you? And Adam said, I heard the sound of you in the garden and I was afraid. Never before did Adam have to flee at the arrival of God. And now he flees when no one is pursuing. Why? Because his conscience condemns him and he hears this condemnation in every breeze that blows and every creak in the door and every whistle on the field, he sees it in every shadow and every flashing light, and he feels it in the presence of God. What a guilty conscience does. The wicked flee when no one is pursuing. What this is teaching is that you and I have a conscience given by God, and that our conscience is committed to getting our accounts settled, to making things right when we've done wrong. In fact, this God-given conscience is so committed not to let us rest with unrectified wrong that it will create pursuers out of nothing. A guilty conscience will turn shadows into phantoms and ambulances into police cars and innocent inquiries into indictments and doorbells into threats and mailmen into warrant officers and school teachers into wardens and parents into cross-examiners and friends into traitors and simple office memos into termination papers. A guilty conscience will create pursuers out of anything unless we drown it with alcohol, or numb it with drugs, or silence it with endless blasts of music and flights from quiet solitude, or harden it with constant denials. The wicked are people who will not make right what they have done wrong nor set their face to do good. And while the grace of God persists, they flee when no one pursues. But woe to the wicked who cease to hear the footsteps of God in the garden. The righteous are not so. The verse goes on, the wicked flee when no one is pursuing, but the righteous are bold as a lion.